What's going on, YouTube? This is Chad Elliott, the AK Atheist Killer, Mr. 530, back to you with a brand new video. So there's this guy named Antithesis314 who posted an article about the Cardi argument back around May, I think May 22nd, 2012. I will post the link to his article where he attempts to defeat the Cardi argument. The title of his article is "Why the Cardi Argument Fails." Of course, I disagree, and it's already September. I haven't had time to respond to him yet. I've been really busy, so finally I got a few days here where I can take some time out. I'm gonna do a response video to him, do a response to Adam Flood and a couple other guys. But this is my response to Antithesis314. Again, the link is below. Check it out. And this is why the Cardi argument actually does not fail. And this guy is extremely flawed with his logic. Okay, so this might seem kind of confusing at first, but just bear with me. It is going to all tie in together at the end. Premise number 2 of the Cardi argument states, life cannot come from non-life on its own without a designer. Pretty straightforward, pretty basic, very easy to understand. Now, Antithesis314 claims that another way you could write premise number 2 and have it mean the exact same thing would be to say only life that has been designed can come from non-life. He says those two statements are compatible and they actually mean the exact same thing. It's just another way to reword it, which I disagree with, and I will get into why that logic is flawed in a little bit. But first of all, since he believes that these two statements, since he believes the way he reworded premise number 2 is actually the same thing as premise number 2, which is not, he says that my argument would therefore be a circular argument and fall flat, because a conversation with me on regards to the Cardi argument would go something like this. This is an example he gave in his article. He said that he would say this to me, or this is a question he would ask: why is it the case that life is designed? And then he says my response would have to be, because the only life that can come from non-life is designed. And then he would say, but why can only design life come from non-life? And then there I would have to say, well, that's because life is designed. And therefore, that would be a circular argument. The problem here is that he's created a typical straw man. Because of course, premise 2 is actually not compatible with the rewording of premise 2, which he created. They are not the same statement at all. And the way he has reworded it makes it completely different than the real premise 2 of the Cardi. And we're going to get into that, which would prove, in fact, therefore, the Cardi is not a circular argument at all. Having a conversation with me, the AK, about the Cardi argument would in fact not go like the way he presented it at all. And I'm going to give you an example of how a conversation with me would actually go, and it would not be the straw man version which he presented, and once again how it's not a circular argument. So the first thing we really need to do here is compare the two statements and break them down to their core foundation. First, the real premise 2 of the Cardi, which states life cannot come from non-life on its own without a designer, and then compare that to the made-up statement which he created that he thinks says the same thing, which is only life that has been designed can come from non-life. So let's get into this and figure out a few things. So from here on out, we are going to compare statement number 1 versus statement number 2. So we're going to just call the real premise 2 of the Cardi argument, we're just going to call that statement number 1, and we're going to call his made-up, reworded version of premise 2, we're going to call that statement number 2, just for the rest of this, to make it more easy for you guys to understand. Okay, at face value, both statements do seem very similar. However, after a closer look, I believe that no, they do not present the same claim. In statement 1, life cannot come from non-life on its own without a designer. This is to say that as part of the experiment, life does not exist until the designer brings it to be from the non-life. While statement number 2 claims only life that has been designed can come from non-life. This is to imply that there was a form of life, design life, prior to or before it comes from the non-life. A response from the claimant here, making statement number 2, may try to resolve this seemingly obvious difference by saying designed life isn't in fact life, it's just the design. The same way a building which has been designed doesn't necessarily mean the building has been built yet. However, if that's the way they want to play it, then go ahead, because a new issue seems then to present itself in regards to statement 2 as it compares to statement 1. If only life which has been designed can come from non-life, and life isn't produced yet, but is only the design, then from non-life only comes the design of life, but not life itself. So really, either way that they want to play it, they're going to lose, just as Antithesis314 has lost if he tries to prove that the two statements make the same claim. They clearly do not, and either way you want to go, I will own you. Also, the claimant, if he's trying to say that statement 1 and statement 2 are the same, the claimant cannot start with one definition of what he means by designed life at the beginning of his argument and then change the meaning at the end to fit his conclusion, or he risks running into the fallacy of equivocation. So you have to start with one definition and you have to stay with it the whole time if you're going to make a statement that both of these are the same. So statement 1 and statement 2 are two very similar statements, but after taking a closer look and really breaking them down, they appear to be very different. Also, I feel that there are two apparent problems with the foundation of statement 2. Not even in regards to do they compare to statement 1 or not, because we've already shown that it's not the same statement. But there are two apparent problems. First, if life already exists and it's not just the design, then you add it to non-life and your product is life, then essentially you haven't done anything substantial. You haven't proved life can come from non-life because you already had life to add to it. You already had life to add into it at the start of your test. And secondly, statement 2 can be rearranged and said this way: non-life can produce life which has been designed. Clearly, this presents issues and logical fallacies. Firstly, the problem most glaringly becomes non-life cannot design anything because it has no brain, mind, or thinking capabilities. So to claim non-life can design something as complex as life is an asinine statement. Another one of the many issues is that there is absolutely no evidence, scientific, observational, or otherwise, that supports such a claim that non-life produces designed life. So at this point, a rebuttal might be something like this: well, how did God do it? I always hear that. Well, how did God do it then? Well, it's fairly obvious. God is not defined as non-life. God is defined as an all-powerful, all-knowing personal mind. He's not pure nothingness. He's not non-life. He's a personal mind. He can think. And this is just a side note as it pertains to statement number 1. Clearly, statement number 1, which is, again, the real premise number 2 of the Carty argument. Clearly, the scientist/designer in the lab trying the experiment would himself be evidence that life exists prior to the testing procedure. However, he is the subject as the designer. He is not part of the non-life creating non-life equation claim. In the real premise number 2 of the Carty argument /statement number 1, all the designer would have is non-living items to add to their equation test. However, in statement number 2, the made-up reworded statement that Antithesis314 has failed so miserably at, as we've already discussed, design life could be added to your non-life equation. Once again, essentially doing nothing. So, now we are going to get into exactly how a conversation with me about the Carty argument in the real premise number 2, not the straw man that he created to try to present or try to show that the Carty was a circular argument, actually would go. This is how a real conversation with me would go in regards to the Carty argument. Now, in this real conversation, how it would really go with me, again, Antithesis314 would ask, to start off, why is it the case that life is designed? And I would say, because of premise number 2. Says life cannot come from non-life on its own without a designer. And then he would say, why can only design life come from non-life? And my response would be, for many reasons. First, scientific. For the past blank number of years, there has been countless scientists, countless numbers of hours, and countless amounts of money put into scientific research. So research would be one of the many reasons. Another would be observation. We've never observed anything other than what I'm claiming. Also, logic and reasoning shows that life cannot come from non-life on its own without a designer. So this is how a real conversation with me would go, not the straw man that he presented using his made-up premise number 2 that he thought was the same as mine, but he reworded it and it was not the same, as we've already concluded. So that's how a real conversation with me would actually go. And finally, I'm just going to draw you a little diagram to help you understand the difference, and then I'm going to be out of here, man. Another atheist will be owned. Here comes the diagram. Alright, so this is a little diagram I drew up comparing the two statements, which is comparing the actual premise number 2 of the Carty argument versus the reworded premise number 2 that Antithesis314 tried to create. And I'm going to prove to you the difference. Please forgive me that I'm drawing on this notepad. I'm in the process actually of going to buy a grease board today so I could do more diagrams, but this is basically the breakdown. Statement number 1 of the Carty goes like this. You have a designer, and then you have non-life, and then you get life. So the picture would look like this. You have a designer, then he throws in the pot a bunch of non-life. And then out of the pot on your plate, you get life. Okay? Designer, non-life, life. The designer puts in the pot a bunch of non-life, and out comes life. That would be premise number 2 of the Carty argument. Now the reworded statement, which is statement number 2, which Antithesis314 tried to create, is actually different, as we've already proven in our video, but here's a little diagram. His goes like this. Designed life plus non-life equals life. And then that diagram would look like this. You have a designer, and then in his pot, he throws in some design life and some non-life, and then out comes life. You can clearly see the difference. Statement number 1, statement number 2, clearly different. Therefore, not a circular argument. His straw man fails again, and the atheist KILLA remains undefeated. I love y'all, man. Check me out. Check out more of my new videos. Contrary to popular belief, I cannot be defeated. I am the atheist KILLA. This is the Carty argument, still standing strong. I'll see you soon. I love y'all, man. I'm out of here. Peace!